can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
You're tapped in, so let's get right to it. Nathalie Yamb, Y-A-M-B. This is a sister who is actually a Swiss citizen, let's say naturalized citizen. However, she's an activist, a Pan-Africanist as well. She just recently went in on the EU, the European Union, because it seems, again, as always, when we're talking about the AES or the Sahel in Africa, West Africa, the European Union, France, United States are always meddling in the affairs of these sovereign countries. Well, anyway, the EU wanted to sanction Burkina Faso. You know, they're mad with Ibrahim Traore because he won't submit to whatever the demands are that they have. And, you know, if you think about demands in terms of the EU or Europe in general, United States as well, France particularly, you're thinking about resources, right? We're thinking about neo-colonialism, you know, things of that nature. Well, anyway, the EU decided it wanted to sanction Burkina Faso because Burkina Faso is doing what Burkina Faso has been doing for the last 3 years exceptionally well. They're finding it necessary to interfere with this sovereign country, and it's not just its political advances, but its financial advances, as well as the social, infrastructural, all those things that have made or is making Burkina Faso the talk of the world. So she got wind of this, Nathalie Yamb, and she decided that she was gonna, hey, let me put you guys in check over here in the European Union. Before I get into that, and I have a tape, some content to show you in response. Well, she responding to what the EU did, and did she lay it out? Did she set them straight? No doubt. There is a hypocrisy with the European Union as well as France and the United States when it comes to democracy, or, you know, taking care of its citizens, things of that nature. Anyway, again, Nathalie Yamb, she is a Cameroon-born, Swiss-based Pan-Africanist, political commentator or slash activist. She's become a prominent voice in West Africa's Sahel bloc, the alliance of Sahel states. That would be Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, aligning herself closely with Burkina Faso's military leader, President Ibrahim Traore, and the broader Pan-Africanist anti-Western influence movement in the region. She's previously been expelled from Cote d'Ivoire, that is the Ivory Coast, in 2019 by the present president. He was there. He was the one who did it back in 2019, and he's still there now, for her political activism. Now, she's attacking the EU just based on recent interviews and clips, you know, surrounding her statement or her attack against the EU. The core argument is that Western powers, again, France, United States, and the EU, the European Union, interfere in Sahel countries' sovereignty. She frames her movement's fight as reclaiming African self-determination, rejecting foreign military bases and external manipulation. She specifically pushed back against what she sees as the European Parliament's diplomatic interference in Burkina Faso and the AES bloc. And she's pointed to Western interests in Burkina Faso's gold reserves and aggressive tactics from figures like Trump, president of the United States. But as the real motive behind, you know, foreign pressure is the fact that Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger all have large reserves of resources, you know, rare earth metals, things of that nature. They have, I mean, just untapped resources. And United States, but France, again, more, you know, more to the point, and the EU are after those resources. So they're trying to figure out any way they can. We think that the EU, along with France and the United States, are mounting an attack, but this will be based upon alleged mistreatment of citizens, alleged doing away of democratic processes that hinders the country's growth. And I wonder how they can make that assumption or determination, being that they're not Burkina Bay people, nor are they a part of the government. But not only that, take into consideration France and the United States, United Kingdom as well, EU countries also practiced neo-colonism, but up until the time Ibrahim Traore took control, he ushered out all these foreign powers, so to speak, and in the process began to build and create for Burkina Bay people opportunities that were not afforded them when France was there, okay, or the UK or the United States. We all understand that their motive, the West, is to just pillage the land for its resources. So since Ibrahim Traore got in there, all that has changed. And as a result, the EU, France, the UK, and the United States are up in arms, almost literally, about this whole process of being kicked out a situation that they thought would be theirs for a long time to come. But the exploitation of the resources in that region have been cut off from them. So this is the problem. But why the EU is involved again is people are scratching their heads about this. Like, come on, man, what are you guys really up to? But they're really attacking Burkina Faso, because if you think about it, Burkina Faso is the model, is the example for other African countries to follow in terms of independence and or sovereignty. And with that, the control over their resources over outside influences or Western powers. So that's the real issue. But the EU has had a long-running diplomatic presence and a relationship there, development programs, women economic initiatives, etc., per the EU's delegation's own materials. But tensions have escalated since Burkina Faso's military government took power and pivoted away from former colonial Western allies towards Russia and Pan-African nationalism. That's the real issue, okay? Now, I wouldn't say as much so because they went to Russia. That's an issue, though, for them, but more so because they shut off the spigot. There'll be no more exploitation of the resources, no more puppet governments being propped up, no military bases, no foreign corporations running the country, pillaging, raping the country for its resources, and the country not benefiting as a result. That is the real issue, okay? That is the real issue. So let me get to this clip because it's very interesting. And again, she sets it out. And if anyone is paying attention in terms of what's going on in the world, it is sheer hypocrisy for the EU and or France and the United States to have anything to say about what's taking place in Burkina Faso, especially when the progress being made there is evident throughout the world. Everyone knows it. All right. That being said, let's get to this clip. But before I do, please like, share, follow, comment, and subscribe. You are tapped in. That is the art of political discourse. We appreciate your participation and your viewership with this channel. Like and share. Most definitely share this with your friends and family and have them subscribe. Okay. Again, we want to thank everybody ahead of time, and we also thank those who have already subscribed to this channel and support it. That being said, let's get to this clip. I find it very interesting. Again, the world is in shambles, and yet, these countries who have something to say about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are in shambles themselves, but they're trying to dictate to countries that are actually doing fairly well. All right, let's get to this clip. Tell us what you think, okay? And again, this is Nathalie Yamb, okay?
This video is intended for the members of the European Parliament. If you're not a member in Strasbourg, move along and keep quiet. I've just become aware of the resolution that you've adopted against Burkina Faso. Since there was already one against Niger 3 months ago, we can expect another against Mali to emerge soon, and for it to still be led by General Christophe Gomart, the French junta man of the European Parliament. Cree, come and get your slap on the head right here. In a resolution, there are generally two parts. The preamble section, which comes first, and the operative part of injunctions, which closes the document. Let's look at yours. I'll start by noting that the European Parliament is judging the political, security, and democratic situation of a third country. I'm asking you, what happens in the FASO here? Is it any of your business? Are you the ones with the authority to evaluate the institutional path of a sovereign African country?
But what that boils down to again is this neo-colonialism. They think they still run Africa, and by some accounts, they are running certain countries in Africa, and those countries' presidents are allowing this because they're lining their pockets with the proceeds from these resources that Africa has an abundance of, so here they are. Let's call it what it is. Them thinking they're protecting their interests. They're concerned with their interests. All right. Their national interest is the resources in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and other countries in the Sahel who are thinking of joining the AES. So they're trying to figure out a way to stop this steam engine from continuing to roll down this hill and roll over them. This is what this is about.
You talk about intimidation, forced conscription, disappearances, and detentions. What's happening in your own home is beyond you. Yet it's what's unfolding here in the Sahel that concerns you. Just last week, the Ukrainian people took to the streets to protest against the kidnapping of young men by Zelensky's thugs in order to forcibly send them to die at the front. But we don't hear a word from you about that. And yet forced conscription has been going on for 4 years in Ukraine. Besides, the people we send to the front, they all come back very much alive. We send them there so that some neurons might enter their somewhat empty brains. While your buddy, that cocaine addict in Kiev, he sends young Ukrainians so that lead enters their bodies and they come back as corpses.
And she's referring to Zelensky, Vladimir Zelensky, the so-called president of Ukraine. And it's been noted or speculated, alleged even, that he is an avid cocaine freak. He loves his drugs. And they have nothing to say about this. Again, he's forcing young men in Ukraine to go to war. He's practically, kidnapping citizens off the streets, young men and some old, and forcefully putting them on the front lines to die. The EU, the West says nothing about this stuff. Says nothing about it.
Kemi Seba arbitrarily arrested in France. We didn't hear from you. Franklin Nyamsi, his assets frozen in France. We didn't hear from you. Dieudonné Mibala, legally persecuted in France for decades. We didn't hear from you. Hussein Dogru, Sylvain Afoua, Jacques Baud, we didn't hear from you. Myself, Nathalie Yamb, banned from entering, staying in, or flying over European territory, which prevents me from going to attend the birth of my first grandchild. My assets frozen, the accounts of my family and friends closed or flagged. We didn't hear from you.
I think that's another problem that African nations or countries are going to face, as well as regular people throughout the world, who especially live in these countries where the governments are becoming more and more dictator rather than a democracy. When you use their system of finance, you have to be aware that if you do anything that displeases them, they can immediately freeze your assets. and not only that, but ban you and do all sorts of things to make your life as miserable as possible. These are their tactics, and we see this all the time.
Ready to join the booming cruise industry? Become an Expedia Cruises franchisee. You'll be part of.
You criticize the suspension of TV Monday, among others. Look, since 2022, you've censored RT and Sputnik in your territories. Did you see the AES states demanding that you reinstate them? Wasn't it you who put Afrique Media and Red Media, along with their founders, on the European Union sanctions list, which I ended up joining a month later? In fact, speaking of that, it was made public 2 weeks ago that my TikTok account, the one where I dance, was shadow banned and censored in your 27 EU countries on the sly, without it even being part of the extrajudicial sanctions decided by the European Council arbitrarily and without due process in 2025. And you dared to open your mouth about Burkina. You open your stinking mouths to spout nonsense about an alleged ethnic cleansing targeting the Fulani community, even though it's been firmly denied by the authorities in Burkina Faso. On the other hand, the proven ethnic cleansing of the Russian-speaking populations of Donbass that happened right on your doorstep for years, that leaves you cold. You act as if you care about the suspensions of student associations in the FASO, while in the streets of Brussels just yesterday, student protests were being violently suppressed. But if you love African students so much, why do you deny them visas when they want to come and study in your countries? Careful now, don't get me wrong. It doesn't bother me when you deny the visas. I think no one should go and study with backward people like you. It's just a point.
I agree. I think that's one of the problems that African countries have to deal with, or don't realize is an actual problem until they're faced with it, is that they send their youth or their children to go be educated, in the European countries. And for the most part, if they're found to be exceptional, very talented and gifted, they stay, and in that, becoming, a dual citizen in a European country, they don't take that talent and knowledge back home to help build the country, help build or their communities, help their people. Instead, they stay there and solidify or make wealthier, stronger European countries rather than their own. So I agree with her. That should not be done. Black people, Africans, or anyone in the diaspora shouldn't do that. Because what you're doing is what they're doing is taking their gifts and talents to the West, who has a history of slavery, the African people, exploitation of the resources and things of that nature. So I agree with her wholeheartedly about that.
Point out your inconsistency. You dare to come and criticize our penal code, our values, our concepts of family, and try to impose your LGBTQRSTU agenda on us.
That's another thing they've done. In order for a lot of these African countries to receive aid from the US and the EU, or, the West, they have to accept and or acknowledge the LGBTQRSTU, whatever she just said, to get that aid. And if there are any indications that that is not being allowed, that LBGT, then aid will be suspended until such time where they monitors, I imagine, are able to go in and recognize or see as to whether or not these rights of these LGBTQ whatever are being upheld and honored. So a lot of African countries are totally against it. They've lost a lot of aid from the West. Another thing, I think that is probably a good thing, as a result of not allowing homosexuality and lesbianism and all these other things into their countries, into their culture, or to allow them to become a part of their tradition, so I support that wholeheartedly.
In your countries, is polygamy, is it legalized? I mean, when your leaders aren't as gay as can be, they practice polygamy all over the place in your countries. From the kings of France to Mitterrand, Hollande, Chirac, Schroeder, Berlusconi, Boris Johnson, Juan Carlos, King Charles of England.
Wow.
Did we come to bother you because you haven't legalized that? You ban consensual marital relations in your countries. We ban consensual homosexual relations in ours. Everyone has their own bans and everything is in its proper place. What's wrong with that? You're yelping over there because of the death penalty that exists in our legal framework, or that's going to be reintroduced for thieves of public funds, for the corrupt traitors, and maybe even child rapists.
Mhm.
Don't you think that you should instead be dealing with the pedophiles and the rapists who are endangering European populations, especially children and women? Just a few figures to refresh your memory a bit. Only 3% of perpetrators of rape or sexual assault on children are convicted in France.
Wow.
3%, 94% of rape complaints are closed without further action.
Wow.
And of the 6% that are investigated by the prosecutor's office, only 8% result in convictions. I beg you, deal with your own mess in your peddlerland and just leave us alone. You're up in arms because the operation of NGOs is being regulated or when they are dissolved.
And that's another thorn in the side of the West, especially the United States and France. Burkina Faso has rid itself of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, gotten them out of there because they learned that most of them are sort of like spy agencies. They're sent there to spy and send back information. They're sent there to destabilize the country. Some are sent there bringing in medicines and medications that are harmful to the population. In fact, some of these medications or drugs or experiments upon, Africans. So yeah, there's no surprise there that Burkina Faso, as well as Mali and Niger, are getting rid of NGOs. I mean, considering they already gotten rid of the government, so to speak, the military, also the corporations. So yeah, that would be the next logical step, is to, or would be to, get rid of the NGOs in that country to make sure that, excuse me, that they've rid themselves of these threats.
But wasn't it in your country that the NGO Urgence Palestine or the Black African Defense League were dissolved?
Mm.
That NGO INSO, the International NGO Safety Organization, which Burkina dissolved in 2025, had the mission of spying on military and governmental arrangements in FASO to provide the collected data to the ultimate sponsor of terrorists, namely France, when they weren't collaborating directly with the actual terrorists.
Imagine you could just choose from a pool of hot, motivated sellers already eager to make a deal. That's exactly what we've built at iSpeedToLead.com.
Where did the former French Minister of the Armed Forces and Foreign Affairs, the ever-harmful Jean-Yves Le Drian, end up after losing his ministerial post in 2022? At the French NGO Acted, which he left when he was appointed as Macron's special envoy to Lebanon. There's Doctors Without Borders raping refugees in Chad, just as Oxfam did previously in Haiti. Do you think you're dealing with people who have amnesia? We will dissolve them. Period. You even dare to praise the past role of European partners in the fight against terrorism by noting the heavy toll allegedly paid by French mercenaries, when it has been methodically proven, thanks to official French sources themselves, that the narrative of 58 soldiers killed in action in the Sahel is a myth. Go watch my video appearing on the screen. It's enlightening and above all undeniable. Not to mention the fact that the French army made a pact with terrorists and prevented the Malian armed forces from retaking the city of Kidal for years. If Europeans are so great at winning wars, then what are you waiting for to deploy your official armies to Ukraine, where Russia has been thrashing your proxies and mercenaries for 4 years? That's where you are needed. Not content with all that, you dare to order the repeal of a law, an act of domestic law in Burkina Faso. You demand independent investigations, which means you are prescribing to a sovereign state how to conduct its justice and its criminal procedures. You order us to implement a credible roadmap towards elections. Right there in front of you, Zelensky has not held elections since 2024. Did you ask him for his roadmap? I am going to tell you very clearly, I will repeat it for those who are hard of hearing. To Krikri, Gomat, Muriel, Laurent, and those other clowns who voted for this resolution, there will be no elections in the AES for 10 years. And even when we do resume elections, it will be municipal elections and then legislative elections. There will not be any presidential elections that you are so impatiently waiting for. You can climb high, you can come down low, you can cry, you can roll around on the ground, you can plot coup d'etat, terrorist attacks, and military invasions. It will not change a thing. There will be no presidential elections in the AES for 10 years. That is not all. You tell us to join the ICC. Well, would you look at that? The United States never joined the ICC. Israel never joined the ICC. But we have never heard you give them the order to adhere to the Rome Statute. Yet they are the ones who spend all the time invading other people's countries, killing or kidnapping presidents, the religious leaders, bombing schools and hospitals, and even committing genocides. But there, your lips, thin as toothpicks, they do not open. Is it because we are African, because we are Black, that you think that you are superior to us, that you are our masters, you bunch of racists?
Oh my God. I mean, this is fire. And she's letting off with them the whole clip. She's using the whole drum. The hypocrisy. This is the only way we can label what the demands were, these, coming from the European Union of all people to this sovereign country, the sovereign African country, to do exactly what they want them to do. And yet your own brothers, Europeans or white people, are committing genocides, waging wars, in fact, are the greatest terrorists on the face of the earth. And you dare to lecture someone about voting and laws and that sort of thing. What is that saying? People in glass houses should not throw rocks.
By the way, to the Africans who have been watching in silence since the very start of this video, if you are in agreement with what I have said, write agreed in the comments. Finally, as if we had not yet reached the absolute height of interference, you take it upon yourselves to criticize the geopolitical and security choices as well as the strategic alliances of Burkina. Meaning, you are creating fictional nightmares for yourselves over there regarding Russia. And then we are supposed to come and buy into those delusions with you. Are you out of your minds? Ladies and gentlemen of the parliament, or should I say the dejected Europeans, the absolute evil for Africa is not Russia, it is you, the Westerners. Right. And it is because our authorities are sometimes far too courteous, wanting to open the door, that you are even still talking about us or with us. You come and churn out this kind of crudeness, and you still have the nerve to say that your special envoy for the Sahel will be going to Ouagadougou before the end of August.
Small business owner, let your bill pay work for your business. Pay your business bills with your credit card.
And in line with the renewed approach for the Sahel, the EU special representative for the region visited the country several times, 3 times altogether, and is planning, by the way, to travel to Burkina Faso one last.
European Union representatives in our countries must be kicked out. If European countries want, they should come in their own name and by respecting us. The EU is an internal organization for Europe over there, just as the African Union is an internal organization for Africa here. None of their representatives need to be present here with us. It only serves to double the pressure they put on us. No special envoy should be received. No new approach can be believed. As long as there is a single person supporting or working for the AES who is sanctioned by the European Union, and as long as clowns like you continue to blather on and insult our countries, our people, and our leaders, you absolute scoundrel. This was Nathalie Yamb. Peace out.
Oh wow. Oh wow. Nathalie Yamb. She has a follower in me, that's for sure. A firebrand, to say the least, about her. Her points are all precise, in hitting the mark. The EU, as well as France, the United States, yeah, they're all a bunch of scoundrels, to say the least. This was a fantastic piece by her, and I hope that you, the viewer, enjoyed that as much as I did. And if you have any thoughts on this, that which she laid down in terms of the European Union, France, the United States, please put those thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about this. I'm going to bring up some more material on her, as well as Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. These countries they are thriving, and yet still striving to get from the grasp of the West, France in particular, the United States also, but also the EU. How they found themselves in that thing, well, it's anyone's guess. Or involved in the Sahel states, it's anyone's guess. But we're pretty sure it has to do with Europeans getting together and saying, hey, we have to attack this thing on more than one front. Let's bring in the EU. Let's bring this. France continue its pressure. United States, the UK. This is how we'll deal with this. Let's also assist the terrorists assisting terrorists, right? Yeah, this is a thing that is going to continue to generate a lot of focus. And again, we send Nathalie Yamb flowers for her take on the situation. And this is something we're quite sure the EU, as well as France and the United States, are not going to be able to dodge or deny. Let's see how they deal with this for sure. All right, that's it for this episode. Again, if you have any thoughts and comments about this piece, especially Nathalie Yamb and what she had to say to the EU, go to the comments. Let us see what you have to say, and we will answer all comments. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.